The Auburn Tigers dropped their first season opener under Bruce Pearl. We talk about it on this live edition of Locked On Auburn.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a special live edition of Locked On Auburn. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby. Joining me as he will every game this season, Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery radio veteran, as we recap and discuss, give our immediate thoughts as Auburn drops the season opener to the 20th ranked Baylor Bears, 88-82. And what's frustrating, because Auburn had a nice lead at the half, Baylor came out swinging to start the second half, and it was a solid back and forth contest, but it just kind of felt like Baylor had control of the game for the vast majority of the second half there, Darrell.
They did. I think Auburn, there were a lot of positives to take from this game, but at the end of the day, you still got a sour taste in your mouth because that was a winnable basketball game. You felt like Auburn was going to win it. You felt like the way they were playing in the first half, you were excited for the second half to start and that they might even get some separation. But give Baylor credit. They're a top 20 program, a top 20 team. Walter is a freak, probably a lottery pick. They didn't go away. But, being totally honest, Auburn did some things that were self-inflicted. The turnover battle, which they did such a good job in the first half.
Yeah, they
come out and end up losing that. They're on the losing end of that ledger. Free throw shooting. Not bad at 68%, but, you got to be in the 70s. I mean, the way Baylor shot free throws, like we talked about the turnovers, Auburn did a really good job kind of getting the board settled a little bit. They were getting out-rebounded in the first half, and they kind of got that locked in. But, again, we can talk about style of play. We can talk about Auburn doing some things that are really puzzling defensively, but at the end of the day, you can't be a -8 on the foul ledger. It leads to more shots, more free throws. That really, in my opinion, ended up being the difference. Now, I'm not saying that that's not warranted. Like I said, it could be a style of play, the way Auburn plays. They're so aggressive defensively. Yeah. But you got to rein that in, because in close games in the conference, you cannot be -8. You just can't. It costs you ball games.
Yeah, and I mean, there weren't many fouls where I looked at it and was like, I don't know about that. I mean, most of the time, it's like, yeah, Auburn probably deserved that, especially several of Johni's where I don't know what he was. It's like he almost panicked sometimes when the ball was thrown down low and he just wanted to foul him so he wouldn't give up a bucket. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to do it. But you mentioned style of play, and I think Auburn is going to be able to do some things that other teams aren't because they're so deep and they play so fast. And I'm sure Bruce is okay with them playing aggressive, because I think that's how this team's going to be. This team's going to annoy you defensively. I mean, they're just going to get in your face and be relentless over and over and over again. Baylor was just able to shoot the lights out with that stud freshman that they have. But it's frustrating because of the way it went down. That's when I think, Auburn wants that second half back, but unfortunately that's not really how it works. Let's talk about a positive note, and then we'll a lot of the comments are negative, so we'll go back to them in a little bit, maybe if we have time. But the debut of Aden Holloway, holy cow. I mean, what an impressive start for his collegiate career, Darrell. Effective as far as seeing the court, effective from behind the arc, and really just kind of lived up to the billing of a McDonald's All-American making his first start. Or I guess his first college action. He didn't actually start.
I want to correct myself, too, before we talk about that. I want to be accurate. It was actually -10. Auburn was -10 on the foul ledger, not -8. So I want to clarify that. Holloway was as advertised. I mean, if you're an Auburn fan, you have to be very excited about watching this young man all year. And Auburn has a point guard that can score for the first time in a long time, that's dynamic, that's electric. He can slash to the basket, and he can hit threes. He was the real deal. Absolutely came out and was it was just so encouraging and so promising to watch how he played, especially because, let's be honest, Zach, we didn't know if he was going to go. They talked about that tender ankle, and man, he didn't look like he showed any ill effects from that at all. He really played well all assets of the game. Had 6 assists, didn't turn it over that much, was explosive, like I said, to the rim, and can shoot the lights out. So very excited to watch this young man play.
Yeah, and just overall consistency from the point guard position for an entire game. What's that? That felt weird, right? I mean, you didn't have to worry about just a bunch of wasted possessions over the course of 40 minutes. There were other ways that they wasted it, but it wasn't just bad shots. So I think that's encouraging. The newcomers I thought were great. Denver Jones, friend of the program, I thought he was exceptional. That big shot late that kept Auburn in it until Baylor was able to score a little bit more to kind of keep it out of range. But Chad Baker-Mazar, I thought he looked solid in the amount of time that he was played. I kind of wonder if he'll get more minutes moving forward. But I was impressed with the newcomers. I was impressed with Johni Broome. Outside of that, I kind of went big chunks of the game thinking, where's Jalen Williams? Where's Chris Moore? Where's Katie Johnson? And every now and then they would do something, but I think that's kind of the next thing is like, okay, the guys that have been here, let's keep building on what you were doing a year ago.
Yeah, it's so early that, we don't want to, Jalen Williams gets 27 minutes, more minutes than any Auburn basketball player. He's got to give you more than 4 points. That's empty minutes. I'm sorry. And then, Chris Moore gets 23 minutes and gets you 4 points, 2 rebounds. So those stat lines are not acceptable for the amount of minutes they played. Now, Chad Baker-Mazara only played 12 minutes. I heard he was on the bike every time he got taken out of the game, riding the bike, pointing to his knee. But there was a stretch there where he had 2 great steals, a layup, came back down the floor and hustled. Great little snapshot. But you got to be smarter than what he did, completely changing the momentum of a basketball game. Not the reason why Auburn lost, but Auburn had a chance to go up. It was a 6-point swing. Holloway misses the back end of a one-on-one.
Right.
They get Baylor gets the ball, and as the guy's coming down the floor, Baker-Mazar chicken wings the guy. They call flagrant. He hits both free throws, and they hit a 3. So thankfully, Auburn lost by 6. If they'd have lost by 5, that was a 5-point trip. Those are fatal. So look, that's something you can clean up. It's not going to, it's early in the year, but just learn from that and don't do something that stupid again. And that may be why he only got 12 minutes. But 7 points in 12 minutes is pretty efficient. I would have liked to see him get some of Chris Moore's minutes. It could be an injury thing. It could be a knee thing. Maybe we'll find out more later on. But like I said, I'd like to see him. He was very athletic. Get more of Chris Moore's minutes.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, from an athleticism standpoint, it seems like this roster is better than a year ago. It seems like they move better. It seems like they're better shooters. Such a small sample size, though, right? But I do love that Auburn's really the only team in the conference that's played somebody right now. I love this. I don't think losing this game hurts you in any way. And I think you can learn more about this team. This was a tournament type situation that they did with their first action of the season. You go to South Dakota, you go play at a place that you're not typically going to play, and you're playing against a top 20 basketball team. That makes you better. I don't care what you say. I don't care about the outcome. And this is a team with a bunch of new faces where there were a lot of questions on what the team would look like, what the flow of the offense would look like, how they would communicate defensively. I don't know. I know this loss stinks, and you and I were watching the game before we clicked, go live, and we were very frustrated with how the last 5 minutes of the game went. But as far as the overall big picture view of the season, Darrell, I still think you can make the argument that okay, things are still going to be better this year than a year ago.
Absolutely. I think the positions of need Auburn addressed. I think that was obvious, even though it's one game in. There's a lot to like and a lot to get excited about, especially the depth. So big picture-wise, yes. In the moment, though, you have lived with these things under Bruce Pearl coach teams, and you just live with them and say, he's such a great coach, and he's taken this program to such high levels. Some of the things that are frustrating as Auburn fans to watch, the silly fouls, the foul differential, turning it over at inopportune times. Those things need to get cleaned up because they didn't go away. Now, Auburn not shooting the basketball well last year, that seems to be addressed. I also am not crazy about, and I know Bruce Pearl won't be either, a team that he really preaches defense and a defensive style. To give up 54 in the second half is something too, from a big picture standpoint, they'll not want to have that happen again. So, it's just unfortunate. There's so many positives and so many feel-good things that get washed away almost because of the way you end that game and how you end that game. Fouls, turnovers. That's just the frustrating part. But you're right. Big picture, a lot to say, okay, they have addressed some things and looking forward to a year, but learn from this so you don't lose leads at halftime going down the stretch. Because remember, Houston in the NCAA tournament last year, completely different team, but Auburn came out, played a really good first half, was up at halftime, lost that lead. Now, Houston was a tremendous team, and it was over pretty much early in the second half. Auburn had a lead with 3 minutes left to go in this game. Mm-hmm. Learn from that. That's the only thing I can say. That's the only thing that washes away some of that good taste about this game is, again, how they finished.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to kind of be waiting to see how they handle that the next time they're in this situation. All right, today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is the best place to wager on all of your sports action. If you took Baylor did cover. Baylor covered on this, and I believe the over-under hit as well. So if that's where you put your money, that's a good call. Also, Auburn, a 3-point dog Saturday against Arkansas. If you feel passionate about that, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Any money line bet, just bet $5, and you'll get $150 as soon as that bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Darrell, as far as give somebody a shout out other than Aden Holloway or Denver Jones, somebody you said, okay, I like what they did. I think we could build on this moving forward.
Well, I really like Chad Baker-Mazara's game other than that one brain cramp. I think that stretch for like 4 or 5 minutes, the athleticism, the hustle to run down a backside steal like that, to get the steal and tap at center court and make the layup. I saw flashes, and I hope, unfortunately, maybe he could have played more minutes and been more of a difference maker if it is an injury, a knee thing. Tre Donaldson at times showed some explosiveness. Didn't play as many minutes of Holloway, but I guess I know why. I mean, the way Holloway was playing was lights out. I want to see more from Johni Johnson. I think that, I expected a little bit more. But again, it's so early. These guys could emerge. This is one game. And I think what's going to happen, Zach, with this team, you're going to have your 2 or 3 core guys that I think you're going to have to count on in Broome, maybe Holloway, and Denver Jones. And after that, it could be just another different player that emerges every night, a different actor, so to speak, that steps up in the starring role, because I think that you're going to have your core, but they're so deep that one night it could be a Johni Johnson, or one night it could be a Chad Baker-Mazara or a KD coming off the bench. I think you're going to see that, and I really like this depth. I'm surprised at the end of the first half, Zach, Baylor's big guys were tugging on their shorts. They looked tired, and I thought Auburn's depth was really going to play a part in the second half to just kind of make that even worse. But unfortunately, it just didn't turn out that way because of some self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah. My guy's Johni Broome. I thought he was really good tonight. I know everybody's going to focus on his fouling, but that's also like Johni Broome. That's who he was last year. I don't think you're going to necessarily change that. I do wish he would not try to argue every time he got fouled and just take it. Like, you're very clearly fouling. That's your style of play. You're going to be an aggressive player. That's okay. You can live with that. But offensively, he did some stuff that I don't think he would have been able to pull off as consistently a year ago. I mean, he had some post moves that I don't think we really saw in his tool belt, in his repertoire a year ago, especially some of the back-to-basket stuff that we saw. I mean, he was taking steps and maneuvering his body in a way that we didn't see him do a year ago. And in fact, Darrell, you and I are in a text group, and I said, I don't think he makes that a year ago. So that to me was encouraging to see. I don't love him taking 3 threes, but if he's going 2 of 3 from behind the arc, I guess I'm okay with it until that stops.
It's a purposeful 3. The only reason why I'm glad that he's taking them and hitting them is because if you start coming out on him a little bit and have to kind of respect that part of his game and don't sag, he can go right by you in the lane and get to the rim. So that aspect of his game, if it keeps defenders honest to where they have to come out and play him a little bit more, then he can put it on the floor and go by. And that's what Denver Jones can do. Everyone talks about what a pure shooter he is, but if you come out and run at him, he'll put it on the floor and go by you. Holloway can do that. See, this is where it's so encouraging. Auburn, in my opinion, has a roster that can beat you a lot of different ways when they play smart basketball down the stretch. And I think there is an inside out. When they talk about this 5 out that Auburn's playing, that is Bruce Pearl's wheelhouse. He plays that. That's the style of offense he wants to play with that 5 out. Those teams he had that were really, really good in the Final Four teams in the conference, they could do that. The conference champ couldn't do that last year, couldn't play that 5 out. And so now that he can do that with this bunch and this roster, as long as they defend the way Bruce Pearl is known for the reputation for defending, this team could be really special. And whatever happened tonight's not going to take away from that, no matter how much I want to stick my finger down my throat and throw up all over the screen because of the way that game ended. Yeah. So there you go. Bless you.
I didn't really see that coming. I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, let's go to some of the live. If anybody has any comments or questions, we'll spend a few minutes on those before those start coming in. On Friday, Auburn hosts Southeastern Louisiana. That'll be Auburn's home opener. That's at 7:00. Surely they'll look better in the second half in that one. And if not, that'll be a really interesting show Friday night. All right. Let's go with Raven. Broome's got to play with a chip on his shoulder. As talented as he is, he's going to be outsized against most teams we face. I think Broome does play with a chip on his shoulder. I think it's almost too much. Times.
And
where gets out of control.
Playing that 5 out style really doesn't matter if there's a guy that's, a little bit bigger. Remember, Auburn didn't have big dominating centers when they went to, they had the Horace Spencers and the I'm trying to remember the other guy that got hurt and free. Can't think of his name. The lefty was his name that Auburn had. It was like a 4-5. He got hurt.
McLemore?
Yes, McLemore. Now they had Aubrey Wiley, but I just don't think he was utilized like everyone thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
So I think that the 5 out system lends itself to not having to have that oversized 5 at that position.
Yeah. War Eagle Wyoming with a good observation. To put in perspective how much BP has upgraded the roster. Last year, KD was the 4th or 5th best offensive player for Auburn. I think he'd be 7th or 8th this year. I agree with that. War Eagle Wyoming. And I think South Dakota and Wyoming are the same place. So he would know. That's where the game was played.
Absolutely. I think I did like some of the burst that KD Johnson had. The explosiveness was there again. I'd like to see him start hitting threes like he did a couple years ago. And again, so early, that might come. We'll see that as the non-conference schedule continues to go on because Auburn plays some good teams.
Yeah. Fort saying Bruce Pearl should have been playing Holloway, Jones, and Broome more minutes. Do you have minutes in front of you on the box where you're looking at? I don't have.
I do, but now let's remember that might be the reason why they didn't play more minutes. It could be a condition of them coming into this game not 100% healthy. Holloway and Broome, we didn't know if they were going to play. One had a hurt shoulder, one had a hurt ankle. So that might be indicative of why they didn't play more minutes. Broome played 26 minutes and Holloway played 27. I said that Jalen Williams played more than anybody else. I was wrong. Holloway played more minutes than any Auburn player, 27 minutes. So I don't know how many more minutes. 26 and 27 with guys coming off injuries. I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah. Other than the collapse, my least favorite thing about the game was them not really backing off calling Dylan Cardwell Jumbotron man.
Yeah.
How annoying was that?
It was very annoying.
Hated that.
Fran Fraschilla knows basketball, but he gets caught up on some certain narratives that he wants to. I don't know. I mean, I just think that, and the kid and Cardwell, and he played 14 minutes, had 5 points, 4 rebounds, probably 4 blocks, 4 assists. That's an efficient. We talk about guys other than the ones we mentioned. That's an efficient stat line for Dylan Cardwell.
It just felt like just eye test and feels here, but it just seemed like the offense lacked so much when we took Broome out and put Cardwell in.
Yeah, I mean that's true. There's a flow. There's an there's an option aspect to that. I'll tell you who seemed to kind of slow the offensive momentum down when he got put in the game for me was Berman. And I know that sometimes last year he could hit some threes and spark. It bogged down in the mud when he came in the game. He only played 5 minutes, but it just didn't seem like a very efficient 5 minutes.
Right. All right, we'll talk for a few more minutes here, and a few people have commented and have come in since one of the first things that you said, but talking about how big that flagrant was, that 5-point possession.
Yeah,
I mean it's a game changer. I mean that's a big deal down the stretch.
It's not. You can have all the roster management you want. You could have a phenom like Aden Holloway. You could have a all-SEC player like Johni Broome. You could have improvement and have certain positions upgraded. But you also have to be smart, not commit silly fouls. Cardwell did that twice, going out to half court to foul a guy way away from the basket.
Mm-hmm.
But just to chicken wing a guy coming by you like that to take a shot, that's a flagrant. It's two shots in the ball, which they were shooting so good. I mean, free throws, huge difference in the game. They knocked down 83% of theirs. So you give them basically 2 points, and then they hit a 3. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, and that's off a missed free throw from Holloway. That's a 6-point swing in a ball game that was a 6-point ball game. I mean, again, they could have come down and not – Baker Mazar could have not fouled them, and they could have hit a 2, and then Auburn, loses 84-82 or 86-82. I get that. But those are momentum swings too. Psychologically, they do things. You just got to be smarter than that. And I think that hopefully that gets drilled into him and the other players on the team that just kind of did some, like I said, some things that were self-inflicting in the second half. Those fouls and picking up fouls. And I don't like, I tell you, I do not like the new block charge rule either. I don't like it. It's an NBA type rule now where you have to have that second foot completely planted for at least 1 second to get the charge.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be bang, bang anymore. And Chris Moore got called for one that was questionable. I don't like that rule. They talk about, it's going to keep kids from getting injured. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it will, because you can go down the lane now crazy thinking it doesn't matter. There's no consequences if a charge isn't called. So I don't know. I like the college rule better than the NBA rule and just leave it alone. But for some reason, they had to tinker with it.
Yeah, I think college basketball is a pretty good sport. The thing they need to fix is the officiating at all levels. But
I'd say Pat Adams gets his TV time, doesn't he? I used to call Teddy Valentine TV Teddy, but Pat Adams loves. I mean, at some point, he realizes his name isn't getting called and he's not getting any screen time, so he's going to start blowing that whistle. And I'm talking about for both teams. It wasn't just Auburn. They got whistle happy in the first half. Let them play, for the love of God. And they just were blowing every little ticky-tack, touch, foul. They kept blowing the whistle on both teams. It's ridiculous.
One last kind of big picture thought. The big storyline this offseason for Auburn basketball was, okay, we got rid of kind of some pieces, and we're going to bring in guys that can score effectively from behind the arc. And in a 1-game sample size, that worked.
Yes.
Mission accomplished. And who they brought in 1 game sample size. We got a long way to go. But, I mean, I haven't felt like we've had an outside scorer based off of what we just did, like Denver Jones, in a hot minute.
Well, Denver Jones had, 3 threes, and Holloway had 4. So you had 7 threes from 2 guards. Look, when Auburn was its most successful, they had a point guard in either Harper or McCormick that could shoot the 3, and they had a 2 guard in Bryce Brown or Samir Dowdy who could shoot the 3. Auburn seems to have that formula going forward again. Just other aspects, clean up. But yeah, that's there again. And that's when Bruce Pearl has his most successful basketball teams. And you get that kind of guard play and 3-point shooting from the 1 and 2.
All right, last question, and then we'll put a bow on this one. Brad H. has a question for you, Darrell. Over under Auburn win total for basketball this year?
23.
Okay.
And only because their non-conference schedule is so much more difficult than it's been other years, right?
In the comments, say over or under for 23 wins. How many wins in the comments?
Yeah. And don't you agree? I mean, because the non-con, like this is a game last year that was George Mason, and Auburn played Baylor. So that's one win. That's why, and Auburn won 21 last year. I think they pick up a couple more wins. They look better. They're a better basketball team, but because the non-conference is so much more difficult, you're not going to get those 10 gimme wins that you got last year.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, after Southeastern Louisiana, you play Notre Dame, then you probably play Oklahoma State, you play Virginia Tech, Indiana, USC. I mean, that's significantly tougher than what they had a year ago.
Exactly. So that's why I'll go with 23. But that, I'll tell you that
Chat's going with the over. I'm actually a little surprised.
The RPI and the bracketology and all that stuff with this kind of schedule, if Auburn gets to 23 wins and finishes in the top 3 in the SEC with this schedule, they could be a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, maybe even a 4.
I buy that.
So
I buy that.
That's something to look at.
Darrell, you and I will be back Friday evening to do this.
Friday morning on the regular show, right?
Yep. And then we'll record Saturday night for the Sunday morning show too. So this weekend, there will be a lot of me and Darrell. In the meantime, how can people check out everything that you've got going on, buddy?
You can follow me, Dap6410, and I'm on various shows Monday morning and Tuesday afternoon on the Auburn Network.
Yeah, you can read all of my written work at auburndaily.com. Please click that subscribe button. Really helps the channel out a ton, and hit the bell if you want to be notified every time we go live so you never miss a live stream. We're going to go live after every Auburn basketball game this season. We'll be back tomorrow. Normal show will drop tomorrow morning. It's War Report Wednesday, and also Auburn quarterback Hank Brown joins us. So be sure to tune into that. This has been a live edition of Locked On Auburn.